So we stopped the last session by understanding the income approach to valuing real estate. We'll now try to understand the other two approaches of valuing private real estate, that is the cost approach and the sales comparison approach. So the cost approach says that the value of the real estate today is equal to the amount of money it takes to construct that real estate again today from scratch. So if I was to procure the land, incur all the construction costs and make the same real estate today, how much would it cost? And that is the value of that real estate. So the cost approach first asks us to estimate the market value of the land that will be needed. Then estimate the building's replacement cost, that is basically the construction, piping, civil work, etc. However, we do need to adjust for any depreciation that must have happened if the current building that we are valuing is an old building. Then it is especially possible that the value of that old building will not be the same as a brand new building that we will construct today, as the old building would have been depreciated. So the market value of the land and the construction today would give us the value of a brand new building today. But if the building that we are valuing is a slightly old building or in some other manner has depreciated, then from this value that we have calculated, that is the value of the land plus the construction cost of a new building, we need to adjust those depreciations or rather deduct those depreciations. Now please understand, depreciation can generally happen in these four ways. First is the physical deterioration of the building, that is the wear and tear that happens that you have to adjust for. So if it's a old worn down building, then the value will not be as high as that of a brand new building. There could be functional obsolescence. Functional obsolescence is the loss in value or the depreciation is in value because of a bad design. So the same land and the same construction cost can have different value depending on how well the building has been designed. So instead of a 2-bedroom apartment in 1,000 square feet area, I made a 1-bedroom apartment, a big 1-bedroom apartment. Now nobody wants a 1-bedroom apartment in 1,000 square feet. We see that people usually prefer 2-bedroom apartments. So if you've had a 1,000 square feet construction, your cost is the same, but you designed it like a 1-bedroom and hence the value is not as high. You should have designed it like a 2-bedroom because today that is what is more in demand for that particular area. So that is referred to as functional obsolescence that your building may have, that is the depreciation because of a bad design, etc. There can be locational obsolescence, that is the location wherein it is no longer suited for that purpose. Locational obsolescence comes because that location is no longer suited for the purpose that the building has originally been constructed. For example, you constructed a luxury residential property and now there is only commercial activity happening in that area. So value of land and construction is still high, but value of land is high for a commercial building or for a commercial use. That is what that area is more prevalent for. There are no markets around, there are no hospitals, etc. that a residential location needs. Hence, if you have a luxury residential building in the area, then the value of that building will be lower than the market value of land plus replacement cost that you have calculated. So land value is very high today. It is high not for residential properties though. It is high because there is big commercial activity happening. You built a residential house historically, so obviously you will have to give some discount because the location now is not suited for residential properties, it is more suited for commercial properties. So some discount for physical deterioration, depreciation because of any functional obsolescence that may have happened, any locational obsolescence, or simply some economic obsolescence. Economic obsolescence happens when the rentals have become too low. So even though the cost of land is high and cost of construction also may be very high, That is, cost of manufacturing may be very high, but if demand is not there, then you may have to sell the building at a loss, just like we sometimes have to sell products at a loss. So economic obsolescence basically indicates that rentals are not high enough to substantiate this market value of land and this replacement cost. That is, today's sale price is at a discount because of some economic obsolescence. So in the cost approach, we first calculate the cost of construction of a brand new building today and then apply any discounts that are applicable to my current building, namely physical deterioration, functional, locational, and economic obsolescence. Let's do an example and understand it better. High-rise towers is a 350,000 square foot high-rise office building located in the main center of the city. The building has an effective age of 10 years, while its total economic life is estimated at 50 years. The building has a structural problem due to which it is not feasible to repair. The building now requires a new roof at a cost of 800 million euros. The new roof will increase the value of the building by 1 million euro. The office chambers on each floor are too small and the floor plans are awkward. As a result of the poor design, rents are 600,000 euros a year lower than competing properties. You see, this statement is probably an indication of functional obsolescence. When high-rise towers was originally built, it was located across the street from a park. A few years ago, the city converted the park into an effluent treatment plant. The negative impact on the rents is estimated to be $750,000 a year. The statement is an indication of locational obsolescence. Due to recent construction of competing properties, vacancy rates have increased, significantly resulting in a loss of an estimated value of 1.4 million euro. That's an example of economic obsolescence. The cost to replace high-rise towers is estimated at 350 euro per square foot, plus builder's profit of 7 million euro. The market value of the land is 50 million euro. An appropriate cap rate is 6%. Using the cost approach, estimate the value of high-rise towers. So again, we will first estimate the value as though it was a brand new building with no problems whatsoever. Once we calculate that value, we will apply the various discounts because of the various problems that this building specifically has. So the area of the building is 350,000 square foot and the cost to replace is 350 euros per square foot. So the construction cost itself would be 350,000 into 350 plus the market value of the land, which is another 50 million euro, plus the builder's profit also will have to be included, because if we replace it today, we'll have to take it from a builder and he'll charge a $7 million additionally. So without any obsolescence, the new value of this building would have been 179.5 million euros. However, our building is not a brand new building. Our building is an old building that has some issues. So this is what the cost of a brand new building would have been. Let's now start to adjust for the problems that our building has and basically reduce this value so as to make it comparable or to compute the value of our property. The first problem that we see is that there is some physical damage and the building now requires a new roof at the cost of 0.8 million euros. This 179.5 would be for a new building with the new roof. So our building is away from this by at least 0.8 million euros. So whoever is buying now will not pay 179.5. He'll pay 0.8 million euros less, because to get this value he has to put 0.8 from his own. So to this value we will first make an adjustment of minus 0.8 million euros. The new roof will increase the value of the building by 1 million euro is irrelevant, because that 1 million euro or the current value would already be here in this 350 per square feet, because this is the value of a brand new building. It doesn't say that making this 0.8 million enhances or makes it some super building. It just brings it back to its normal level. So the normal level of the building is already captured in this 350 per square feet. So please note, do not incorporate. This is redundant information. You don't need to add this to your original value. This value already includes a new good roof. To get this, you have to pay 0.8 million euros. We saw functional obsolescence, that is the floor plans or each floor is too small. So because of the design, the rents are 0.6 million a year lower than competing properties. The cap rate is given to be 6%. So we can compute the value of this functional obsolescence. That will be 0.6 million divided by 0.06, which will come out to be 10 million euros. So there will be a functional obsolescence of another 10 million euros that has to be deducted from this 179.5. We are also given some locational obsolescence. So negative impact on the rent comes out to be 0.75 million a year. So because of the locational obsolescence, the value has reduced to the extent of about 0.75 divided by 0.06, that is equal to 12.5 million euros. So from this we will further deduct 12.5. Due to recent construction of competing properties, vacancy rates have increased significantly, resulting in a loss of an estimated value of 1.4 million euros. So because there are too many competing properties, the question essentially is assuming that the vacancy will never in the near future come back to full occupancy levels. So this loss in rent should also be discounted for if you are buying this property. If I am buying this property, I will value it assuming a particular vacancy, because I see so many competing properties in the vicinity. So whoever is buying this property now will further apply a discount because of economic obsolescence. So this 1.4 again has been told to us is the reduction in value because of economic obsolescence or because there is too high a vacancy rate in the area. Please note now that the value itself has been given, so no need to divide it by a cap rate again. If it was an annual number, we would have divided it by the cap rate. So another 1.4 million euro decline in value because of the economic obsolescence. So if we take the original value or the value of a brand new building and adjust for all the depreciations or all the losses in value for the various reasons, we will get the value of our current property. So it will be the brand new value minus whatever defects are there in our building or whatever obsolescence has happened, which will come out to be 154.8 million euros. Please note, the question also says that the building has an effective age of 10 years, while its total economic life is estimated at 50 years. So whatever would be the value of a new building would be the value for the next 50 years. There has been some physical deterioration because our building is already 10 years old. That depreciation is going to happen to the civil construction, or will it happen to the land? That depreciation in value will happen to the civil construction of the building. So whatever was the cost of a brand new building would have to be depreciated by another 10 years so as to bring the physical deterioration in the building. So this new value is for the next 50 years. Rather, 350 into 350, this is the cost of construction of a brand new building. And a brand new building lives or stands for 50 years. After 50 years, we have to reconstruct it. So if our building is already 10 years old, then somebody buying this building will apply some discount, or will he pay the same value as for a brand new building? So he will give some discount for the physical deterioration. So $129.5 million is the cost of construction today. That is 350,000 square feet into 350 euros per square feet plus the 7 million euro builder profit, on which there has been a curable deterioration which can be fixed by paying another 800,000. So the replacement cost is $128,700,000, of which 1/5 has already been used up. This is the value that is there for 50 years. 1/5 of this has already been used up. So we will take 1/5 of this value and further subtract that from our calculation, such that our net answer is going to be 154.8 minus $25.74 million. Which comes out to be 129.06 million euro. Please note that we are depreciating after the curable physical deterioration, because this replacement has been done just now. So this 0.8 I do not want to depreciate. I want to depreciate the rest of the building. After spending this 0.8 million euro, the roof is brand new. The roof can still work for the next 50 years. So the roof I won't depreciate again. That is why when I'm depreciating after whatever has been renewed. So the remaining value is being depreciated by 1/5 or 1/5 of it has already been used up. So from the total value, this is additional value that needs to be deducted. We should have deducted it earlier because this is the physical deterioration. However, here we've deducted it in the end. Doesn't make any difference. The net value will still come out to be 129.06 million euros. Now, this method, the cost approach, is generally used for newer properties for all the reasons that we asked and you discussed. Because for older properties, it will first of all be very difficult to estimate all these depreciations that we have applied and then the deterioration, etc., etc. So generally newer properties are valued using the cost approach because anyways there wouldn't have been much depreciation. And it generally represents an upper cap on the property price. So the property price can never be more than what we have valued using the cost approach, because it is, then I'll rather make the property myself. I'll just take the land and probably customize it to my needs also and make a new property. So the cost approach is also a good approach. It gives us an upper cap on the property. The earlier approach we studied gave a multiple to the income. That was the income approach. Normally the income approach method would be slightly lower or slightly higher depending on whether the income is low or high from that property. The third approach is called the sales comparison approach, wherein we take on data from comparable sales or sales of properties in the region and then use that data to estimate the value of our property. So an appraiser has been asked to estimate the value of a warehouse and has collected the following information. So the size of the property that we are valuing is 50,000 square feet. Comparable properties had the following sizes. The age of our property is 10 years. The age of the comparable properties are also given. Physical condition of our property is average. of comparable property was average, the second property was poor, and the third property was in a better condition than our property. Location of our property is prime. Location of two of the comparables were also prime. The second had a secondary location, it was not as prime. The sale of our subjective or our property is going to happen now, that's why we are valuing it now. The comparable transaction for one happened 10 months back, rather about a year back. The second happened 15 months back, and the sale of the third comparable property happened 20 months back. The sale price at those transactions is also available. We want to calculate the sale price for our subject property. Now in the sales comparison approach, we will first compute the per square feet price from comparable transactions. Then we will apply premiums or discounts depending on whether the comparable property was better than us or it was worse off than us. If it was better than us and our property is worse off, then we'll apply some discount. If our property is better than the comparable, then we'll apply some premium and then use it to calculate the value of our property. So in the same question, some more data is given. That is, the appraiser's adjustments are based on the following. So the appraiser is the person who is valuing this property and he would like to make the following adjustment. Each adjustment is based on the unadjusted sales price of the comparable. That is, whatever is the per square feet sales price of the comparable on which we will apply these adjustments. Properties depreciate at 2.5% per annum. So since comparable 1 is 1 year newer than the subject, a downward adjustment of $212,500 is made. That is 8.5 million into 2.5% into 1 year. We can see that from the data. So comparable 1 was a 9-year-old property. Our property is 10-year-old. So whatever is the per square feet price, we will apply a discount of 2.5% because our property is 1 year older. If our property is 2 years older, we would have applied a discount of 5%. In case of property 2, our property is 4 years newer. So whatever was the price of this property, we would have applied a 10% premium. Similarly, we would have applied a 2% premium to this price on account of the age of the property. Condition adjustment. If it is good, then it would be 3% more than an average. A poor condition would be 3% lower than the average. For example, comparable 1 is in the same condition than the subject, so no adjustment needs to be made. Upward adjustment is made for comparable 2 because comparable 2 is of a poor quality and we are of a average quality, so 3% higher than comparable 2. Location adjustment. If it is a prime property, no adjustment. For a secondary property, a 15% discount is applied. Both comparable 1 and the subject are in a prime location, so no adjustment is made. Over the past few months, sales prices have been appreciating 1% per month. So comparable 1 was sold 10 months ago. Upward adjustment of $0.85 million is made so as to compute the fair price of comparable 1. Now please note, so 1% for time, secondary minus 15%, 3% good over average and 3% poor below average, and 2.5% is the annual depreciation in the properties. What the appraiser is doing is that he is applying the adjustments to the unadjusted sales price of the comparable. So what he is doing is that Before I compute the per square foot price of the comparable, I would take it up or down for all these adjustments. So comparable 1, the age is 9, R is 1 year older. So to whatever is this price, we will apply a discount of 2.5%. Physical condition is the same, so no need to apply any premium or discount. Location is the same, so no need to apply any premium or discount. Sale date happened 10 months ago. If we were seeing this property today, then the price would have been higher by another 10% because 1% per month is what we've seen is the increase in price. So to 8.5 million, we would on the whole increase it by 7.5% before computing our comparable price. So the value would become 8.5 into 1.075. This would be the total price divided by 40,000 will give us the per square feet comparable from transaction 1. We can multiply this 10 to the power 6 so that it gives us a number. So from comparable 1, the price comes out to be $228.44 per square feet. Similarly, let's compute the price from comparable 2. Comparable 2 has an unadjusted sale price of $7 million. Let's apply the adjustments in a similar manner. This property, however, is 14 years old. So it's 4 years older than our property. So to adjust, we would need to reduce the price by 10%. That is 4 into 2.5. So to compute the comparable price, we would have to add 10%. That is 4 into 2.5 because our property is relatively newer. It's 4 years newer, so it's 10% newer than this property. The condition was poor. So a poor sold at 7 million. An average will sell at 3% higher. So we'll again add 3% to make it comparable to our subject property. It is in a secondary location. A secondary location sold at 7 million. A prime location will sell at 15% higher. The sale date was 15 months back. 15 months back, the price was 7 million. Today, the price will again be 15% higher. So the total price that is comparable to ours would be 7 into 15, 15, 30, 43% into 1 plus 0.43 divided by 30,000, which will come out to be $333.67 per square feet. So for the third property, similarly, the property is 1 year older. 1 year older property sold at 10.5. A new property will sell at 2.5% higher. The property is in a good condition. A good property sold for 10.5. An average property will sell for 3% lower. Both are prime, so no adjustment needed. Sale happened 20 months ago. So the price of the property today would be 20% higher to make it comparable. So just sum them up first and then apply the percentages. Rather than applying the percentage to each, you're just wasting your time because all adjustments are on the unadjusted sale price. So 10.5 into 19 or into 1 plus 0.195, this sums up to be 19.5%, divided by 65,000 will give you the per square feet rate, which comes out to be $193.04. Next step is very easy. Take the average sales price for all these properties. So the three comparables gave us three comparable sales price, and we take the average and multiply the average with the square footage of our subject property, which is given to be 50,000 square feet, to derive the estimated value based on the sales comparison method, which comes out to be $12.6 million. Now, please note that the appraiser can apply more adjustments also. If he feels that comparable 2 is more like my current property, then you can give a higher weight to comparable property 2. You can do a weighted average. But this is the general technique of applying the sales comparison method, another very useful method to valuing properties. So what are the due diligence checkpoints that you should be careful about when you're investing in private real estate? First, check the lease review and rental history. Confirm the operating expenses by examining the bills. Check for the cash flow statements. Obtain an environmental report to identify the possibility of any contamination or any environmental hazards. Perform a physical/engineering inspection to identify structural issues and check the condition of the systems. Inspect the title documents and other legal documents. Have the property surveyed to confirm the boundaries and identify the easements or identify the area of the entire property. Verify compliance with zoning laws, building codes and environmental regulations. Verify payment of taxes, insurance, any special assessments that may have come, and any other expenditures that may have been made. So just be careful about these points when you're investing in real estate. Now, constructing indices for real estate is generally a little difficult because so many frequent transactions are not there. Constructing indices for stocks is much easier because a Reliance stock or a Microsoft stock gets traded thousands of times during the day. So a fair price or a last traded price is very easily available. Whereas a property may get traded once a year, sometimes once in 10 years. Hence, having a daily index or even a quarterly index becomes much tougher for real estate because so many transactions are not there. Indices, hence, are generally based on appraisal data. Appraisal implies that the value of the property is an estimate of some appraisers. So these appraisers could be fund managers and other specialists who give an estimate of the value of the property today, and that estimate could be given by any of the methods that we studied earlier. And that appraised data is used to calculate the return from the property and to calculate the return on the index. So remember that the return on the property would be calculated as the net operating income. This is the same as we studied in the previous class, minus the capital expenditures, the repairs, etc. that have to be done, plus the ending market value minus the beginning market value. So this is, so to say, the dividend from the real estate. The remaining part is the capital appreciation, but the capital appreciation comes with some investment, so that has to be knocked off, divided by the beginning market value. We'll understand with an example. It's the same as the return on a stock, that is dividends plus ending value minus beginning value upon beginning value. Please try to remember this formula. Because these ending values and beginning values also at times are not actual transactions, rather it is appraisal data or estimated data. The data reflects the market with a lag. So first a transaction has to happen, and then the appraiser will use it in his calculations. So if a new transaction hasn't happened, then the appraiser will also be valuing it using old transactions, and hence the data or the current value may be at a lag or maybe at a discount or premium to the actual value. It also tends to smoothen the data because value is not changing every moment or every second or every day. So from quarters to quarters, if transactions haven't happened, the values won't fluctuate much. Not because the value isn't changing, but because there is no transaction that has happened to endorse that change in value. So volatility is understated, or data tends to be the same. So 10 was the value last month, also 10 is the value, this month also 10 is the value, next month also. Not because there is not volatility, but because there is no transaction. And hence this tends to reduce the standard deviation, or it tends to artificially reduce the volatility. This phenomenon is called smoothing. This also results in low correlation with other asset classes, because other asset classes will be fluctuating. So it will look like real estate doesn't fluctuate, or real estate has low correlation with other asset classes, which may not actually be the case, which may just be an issue with the index construction method and the index calculation method. Once again, just remember the return formula. Net operating income is gross potential rent adjusted for vacancy, adjusted for direct expenses, utilities, maintenance, direct taxes, insurance. Depreciation, income tax is not deducted from NOI. NOI is more like the EBITDA rather than net income. In transaction-based indices, actual data is used. It's not appraisal data. So in a repeat sales index, we require the repeat sale of the same property for the index value to change. So if that property hasn't transacted, the value of that index won't change. In a hedonic index, we don't require that same property to change, but we require some sale. So if even one sale has happened in the region or in the vicinity, then we can use a regression type model to judge the price of other property. Something like the sales comparison approach that we did. That historically, this property is related to the other properties in so manner. It's a 20% discount, or it's a 50% premium. And if this property is traded at a price of so much, then the other properties can be valued likewise. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. Repeat sales will give us exact data, but again, repricing will be very infrequent. Hedonic will be more frequent repricing and more updation, but then data is an estimate. It's not exact data. Some ratios that we should be careful about and we should evaluate in real estate. First is the debt service coverage ratio, especially important in private real estate because real estate transactions tend to be big. The price of one unit will also be much higher than buying a stock or buying any investment. So normally these are leverage investments or invested after taking on debt. So debt service coverage ratio is important. Debt service means both interest plus principal. So what is the net operating income or the EBITDA, so to say, that the property is made, divided by the interest plus principal that has to be serviced. High means good, means you won't have any problem on servicing your payments. Low suggests you may have to fund the interest and principal from other sources of income. Loan to value is also an important thing that you should see. So loan to value is simply the loan amount that you have taken divided by the total value of the property. This number is very high. Then again, there may be some risk, but again, return can also be much higher. A real estate lender agreed to make a 10% interest only loan on a property that just been valued for 2 million, so long as the debt service coverage ratio is at least 1.5 and the loan to value ratio does not exceed 75%. Calculate the maximum loan amount assuming the property's net operating income is 250,000 euros. So let's compute the maximum possible loan first from the first condition and then from the second condition. The first condition says that the debt service coverage ratio should at least be 1.5. So whatever is the loan amount into 10% will be the interest payment. There is no principal payment. He says principal you don't have to pay on an annual basis. You can pay in lump sum at the end. So the servicing every year is only the interest. So loan amount, whatever it is I take into 10% will be the debt servicing. The net operating income is given to be 250,000. So 250,000 divided by L into 10% should always be 1.5. Should at least be 1.5. Rather should be greater than or equal to 1.5, or the loan amount should be less than or equal to 250,000 divided by 1.5 into 0.1, or it should be less than or equal to 1.67 million euros. Let's do it using the second method because he has put two conditions. So it will be the lower of the two that we can eventually take. It says that the loan to value should not exceed 75%. So the property has been valued for 2 million. So whatever is the loan amount divided by 2 million should be less than or equal to 0.75. So from the second condition, the loan should be less than or equal to 0.75 into 2, that is should be less than or equal to 1.5 million euro. Hence, the maximum loan amount that he can take would be 1.5 million euro. Another important ratio that needs to be calculated is called the equity dividend rate. Equity dividend rate is simply the first year cash flow to equity divided by the total equity that we have invested. So equity is our contribution in buying that real estate. Definitely we'd be interested to see what is the return on our equity. The return earlier was on the total market value. Total market value includes the loan that we have taken, or a part of which will go into paying the loan. So the first year cash flow to equity divided by the equity is the equity dividend rate. Returning to the previous example, calculate the equity dividend rate assuming the property is purchased for the appraised value of 2 million euro. The net operating income was 250,000 euro and the loan to value ratio was 75%, giving us a loan amount of 1.5 million euro. 10% of this was the interest that has to be paid every year. So if the loan was 1.5, what was our equity investment in the first year? It would be 2 minus 1.5, that is equal to 0.5 million euro. On this 0.5 million euro or 500,000 euro, we are getting 250,000 as net operating income minus the interest that we have to pay, that will be 10% of 1.5, that is 150,000 euro, will come out to be 20% or 0.2. Using the last example, calculate the IRR if the property is sold at the end of 5 years for $2.5 million. So guys, IRR in this case means the equity IRR. That is the IRR that you have received on the equity that you invested. Now, every year to equity, we received a cash flow of 250 minus 150, and that is equal to 100,000. We invested to begin with a value equal to 0.5 million, that is 500,000. We get 100,000 every year. In the future, we additionally get 2.5 million of which a part has to be paid to repay the loan because it was an interest only loan. So the entire 1.5 million loan is still outstanding. So 1 million is what comes back to us after repayment of the loan. 500,000 we invested ourselves and 1.5 million is the loan that we had taken. So FE comes out to be 1 million. This happens for 5 years, so we get 5 payments at the end of each of the 5 years. And we need to compute I by Y. That I by Y would be the internal rate of return that the investment has generated to us on our equity. So the IRR comes out to be 30.87% on the equity of 0.5 million that we had invested.